Thank you very much. I think I'll go on the first one, financing the program. I think that we should try and make, finances available to women. Because, we talk about several funds available for women's program, and yet women cannot access these funds. Sometimes the funds come with preconditions. Sometimes the funds are, if you take a country like, if a place like my country, women are supposed to bring collateral, when they want to, access a fund. Sometimes in other countries, your husband has to be there to guarantee for you. So if we believe that we should, try, and improve the life of women, then we must also make these funds accessible. We must remove all kind of, conditionality so that women, rural women and urban women can have access to funds so that they can adapt to their lives. The issue about rural and urban women, I think they all have the same frustrations. In urban cities, like women living in, overpopulated areas are faced with disease, floods when it rains. Now we are having torrential rains. And it's just sweeping houses in the urban areas. And then in a country where you depend so much on hydro, electricity, there are water, electricity shortages, So if you're in the urban area and you don't have money for a generator, then you will live in darkness, just like a rural woman without any electricity. So they all have the same frustrations and pressures. And I think that this population issue has to be looked from a different angle. A really different angle. The issue is getting the women to tell their own story. If you take 4 women from different parts of the globe and you show it doesn't represent the views of women, the whole world. It doesn't. And sometimes, lack of information, getting the information to the women, it's also a problem.
Then aren't these 4 women representative of 4 stories or 4 issues? The 4 women, you're saying you can't tell the story by getting 4 women to tell it. For the whole
women of
But they are representative. You can't get 4 million.
Yeah, they are representative. But if you look at the ratio,
so how do you
population.
How do you propose that women can tell
that story?
She said
that she mentioned that they are trying to get women to be involved in the negotiation in Copenhagen. From where I'm coming from, this is the first time I've heard about it. Because I was in Nairobi, in May. And we were trying to put women's agenda on the African platform. And it was very difficult during the negotiations. The only way women can be felt in Copenhagen, then maybe we have to put a whole plane load of them and send them to Copenhagen. We collect them from every part of the world.
Okay.
And send them to Copenhagen. Maybe her organization can bring the funding and we'll select them and they will be there.
I think it's a sad statement on where we are on this issue, that actually in 2009 that we have to talk about shipping women to the most important conference that our civilization faces. And this is largely as a result of the failure of governments in every country to democratize the debates around climate change, which is why it continues to be seen as a niche issue, as an environmental issue, and not as the biggest threat to our civilization. Actually, in the mid-term, we're talking about an increase in population. In the longer term, we could be talking about catastrophic population crashes, mega death. And this is the reality in 100 years' time, because our planet is slowly disintegrating in terms of the conditions that have evolved over 4 billion years to sustain human society. Remember, we've only been on this planet for 100,000 years. As civilization, we've only been on this planet for 10,000 years. And I think people need to get this issue strongly in perspective, because the people who we need to be pointing fingers at are our governments. I've been covering every issue from women's rights to the environment, to human rights, to trade policy, to the environment for 20 years at the UN. And my abiding frustration has been that governments like my own, they go and give a good pitch in New York, in Geneva, and then they remain silent when they come to Delhi. They do not have any feedbacks, no report to Parliament, let alone the population. And it's because we have had an abject failure of democratic debate on this that we've reached this ridiculous road that actually we think that we have to ship in truckloads, plane loads of women. We may well need to do that. But we've been down this road many, many times before. As I mentioned, 1995 Beijing, the Fourth World Conference on Women was supposed to be the conference to end all conferences. What were we discussing? We were talking about microfinance for women. We were talking about making sure that women had title to land. We were talking about the right to make sure that women had control over their fertility by access to affordable, safe healthcare. We were talking about expanding women's access to employment, safe, affordable, non-exploitative livelihood opportunities, recognizing the fact that women were the largest producers of food in the world, that we were the ones who were providing water to our families, fuel to our families, healthcare to our families, and yet, 20 years down the road, we're asking simplistic questions about, well, where are the women? Please, learn from the history on this, because all of the lessons are there.
Your Highness, is there another way of getting women's voice over to Copenhagen without shipping women in an aircraft?
Well, I think we're all saying the same thing to a large extent. I think the main question is not only that women speak out, but also the question is, will they be heard? I mean, who's listening? A room like this, and I'm happy to see as many men here interested in this subject, but I mean, we've all recognized through countless different models, through the Millennium Development Goals, through countless discussions, the importance of women. We've argued yesterday about numbers, but numbers like 8 out of 10 farmers in Africa are women are not numbers that came from climate change. They're numbers that we found when we walked towards the MDGs. Those are facts. We're not here to negotiate them. That's the bedrock of 70% of the problem is women, affecting women. Now what we're saying is 70% of the solution can be found through women. So how do we get, I mean, it's a question I have rather than an answer. It is about shouting to be heard. It is about recognizing the fact, as Barbara said, that these are people just trying to survive. I mean, speaking is the next level, but right now they're trying to survive. How do we get from this rhetoric, sitting in a room like this where we all agree with each other, to actually doing something?
Okay.
Thank you very much. I'm Netumbo Nandi Ndaitwa, Minister of Environment and Tourism from Namibia. I'm here representing my president who was invited. Unfortunately, he could not make it, but delegated me to represent him. From the discussion, I want to pick up on the issue of two issues basically. One is where are the women in the negotiation, and number two is the issue of seeing women as victims but not a part of the solution. Now, with the first question as to where the women are, you mentioned earlier the issue of the girl child, and having served as the African chief negotiator for the Beijing Platform of Action, some of you were following will recall that critical area number 11, the girl child, was brought in at the later stage when the African women realized that we cannot make any success if we just talk about women issues when people are adults, but we have to start with the girls. So this underlines how we realize the importance of the girl child. And then another issue that is raised in the Beijing platform, which I think one is not seeing good progress, is the mainstreaming of gender. Similarly, is the whole issue of terminology. When we were talking about women empowerment, we have seen a lot of progress. But when we are now talking about gender, I think somehow, somewhere, we are losing track. I know, for example, in Namibia, we had the Ministry of Women Affairs and Child Welfare, which I had the honor to lead. And one was seeing progress. Now we have changed. It's a Ministry of Gender. But